This is Conversations with Corrections. Hello, I'm Richard Pyatt. Every day we are inundated with claims of new advanced technology and tools that promise to revolutionize the way we work and live and disrupt whole industries. How do we sort through all these promises? Some of them are empty. What's real about all those promises? In corrections, it's critical to stay up to date on the latest advancements and make sure that we're not getting something that just doesn't work. How do we become a leader in corrections, and what does the future look like? Joining me today are two very important people at the Utah Department of Corrections. Christy Holt is the Director of Technology and Innovation, and Matt Romney is the Manager of Technology here at UDC. Thanks for joining us on Conversations with Corrections today. Could you tell us a little bit, to begin, about what got you here? What's your background, Christy?
Yes, and so happy to be here today. Thank you. For me, I got here by invitation. I heard that corrections was replatforming data and going to be replacing a monolithic system, and that was very intriguing to me. So a friend brought me in, and I've been here for almost 2 years. Recently took the role of director in October
and you
of
worked in the private sector?
I did come from private. I have a background of about 15 years in tech, specifically AI. So when I was brought in kind of as a AI expert at the time, pretty wild west with AI, but being in AI for 15 years, I think I had a really good perspective on what we could do and how we could use it to modernize our systems. So that's what I was brought in for. And then again, shortly after I was brought in, I took the director role in the end of 2025.
Okay. Matt, what's your background? What landed you here at UDC?
Wow. I've had a varied background, everything from sales and service to utility location and fast food. But I started with the state of Utah in 2011 at the Department of Human Resources, and very quickly found my niche in the technology side with HR. And I've been in business analysis and technology ever since then. And with corrections, since 2015, I've always been in a role dealing with the technology that we're using here, making sure it does everything we can make it do to support corrections.
Okay. Let's talk first about the scope of technology here. What we're not talking about are people's computers and their laptops and the phones that they use. We're talking about the kinds of technology that is essential for the operation of what corrections does. What does that mean? What kinds of technologies are we talking about?
Well, I think for me, the biggest thing that I learned when I got here is we're essentially running a small city. And that was a huge surprise. I didn't understand the capacity at the time of technology that we were talking about. And where we started is on a monolithic system with a offender tracking system 30 years ago. And Matt's been a part of building onto that system. It extends way beyond offender management. It also goes into a lot of our operational side of things. And I think we've done a good job at keeping that going. I think it's time to change it, obviously. Yeah. But there's a lot of other systems that support that system within our operations. Some of them are talking to each other, some of them aren't talking to each other, and I think that was the biggest problem that we've tried to solve over the last 18 months.
Matt, this is a huge deal. We're talking about an offender management system. We're talking about information that's crucial to law enforcement throughout the state and perhaps, other areas of the nation as well, that has information about who we have in our system. That's a big deal. It's a lot of responsibility.
It is a lot of responsibility. And it, as you said, it's data about everything they do, where they're at physically, what they're doing for programming, meaning therapy and treatment and classes, along with what restrictions they have because of the laws they've broken. What is their agreement on how they're going to behave? There's so much data involved in this. And it's necessary not just for us, but it's also necessary for a lot of the partners that we work with as well.
And I'd really say I didn't realize how much it really affects community safety. I think that most of the people that we house are going to leave our facility, and are they leaving our facility better, and how safe are they in our communities? And that's very important, not only data, but the way that we move them through the system and how we can assist them to become better people
So this
while they're with us.
So this is information on people that are in our facilities, incarcerated, and as they move through and go on probation and then beyond.
Yes.
Those
Correct.
kinds of things. So now it's time for us to update that particular piece of technology with what we're calling now USIMS, formerly known as Project Hawkeye. Now we're moving rapidly forward on this. What's it like trying to get USIMS instituted? What are we doing to get this so that it is something that can truly be useful and that will, in fact, make us a leader in the state in technology?
So when I got here in the end of 2024, we were taking an approach of building a new system ourselves. So with our partners and backbone of DTS,
Right. And DTS is the state technology.
Yes.
They oversee all of the state technology. So they're the big kahuna, and then we've got Department of Corrections Technology and Innovation is kind of under them or alongside them, or
No, it's a little bit different. So they are our centralized IT, which means they're really in charge of our security and our IT services.
right? They are the computers and the phones and all that stuff.
They make sure that they're safe
Right.
and that we de-risk them and that they're managed in the right way. Technology and innovation was brought in to be the liaison between the needs of UDC and DTS, and really understand, like, how do we bridge that gap of our needs, which we know UDC and DTS is here to support us, but they don't know really the business side.
Right.
And so T&I really bridges that gap. We've only been around for 2.5 years. We've had one prior director to me, Ryan Day, who really started to change the way we think about technology and within UDC. In my opinion, he's the one that started to transition us to understand UDC is actually a tech company, and every big corporation is a tech company. Tech really is what makes things happen efficiently and effectively within any system. So I think that big, huge change that he brought in is really what's catapulted us to look at this differently and see how we can solve this problem in a unique way, which is what we're doing with USIMS. So again, a 1.5 years ago, we were looking at rebuilding this huge monolithic system because there really wasn't one system that we could exchange a one-to-one, like, an offender management system. There wasn't one system that could innovate and update us. Our system's been built since 1998, I think, is when it first came online, and then we've just been building on top of it. So it was a really big lift, and we didn't really have a straight path to get there. So taking the approach to rebuild this system, we approached it for about 12 months, and we realized that was actually not the right answer. That the most innovative thing that we could do is this USIMS model, which is a microservice model where we can take vendors and plug these vendors in to solve very specific problems within UDC. But the only way that we're able to do that is to build it on our own data system. So we have, over the last 18 months, re-platformed all of our data to be in the cloud so we could have this kind of cool system that we could do plug and play with vendors. And this is very unique to government in general. This isn't how government has typically built their systems, which is really what's putting Utah the front runner of innovation in the country.
So I don't really think we want to underestimate this. So what you're saying is, just to kind of boil this down, is that right now we have our offender management system, which is the kind of system that you can go in, put in someone's name, see what their offense is, see what their mugshots are, see what their medical history is, see what their behavior is, see what their, everything about them while they're in our system, so that everybody's on the same page about who this person is, and if they do something when they're on probation, we know what the background is, we know what that person's deal is. What you're talking about is making that one component of a larger system that's going to have additional power and technology behind it with these additional vendors, thereby creating our own system so that we can create something that will be useful to us and potentially others. So Matt, is that accurate? Could you explain a little bit more about how that would work?
That's very accurate. And I'm going to go back to something that Christy said. It's a monolithic system, meaning it's this giant. Right now, OTREC is this giant, massive structure. It's hard to move. It's hard to change. I mean, think about taking a house and trying to remodel it. Your house basically becomes unusable during the time that you're remodeling it. So that's very difficult to deal with.
We can't do that.
No, and we've been trying to do that for years. So this USIMS approach is taking that and saying, what's the most important part of it? It's the data that we've gathered. Let's make that the center of our system. And then take this big monolith and break it down into the essential components and figure out which vendor can replace that component and just plug it in to this data so that we still have control of our data. And all of the different vendors are pulling from and feeding into that same source of data. But we can say, hey, this vendor isn't working for us anymore. Let's find a new one. Or this vendor is working really great. Let's maybe expand what they're doing for us. But it gives us that control that we kind of had that control with a monolithic system, but we didn't have the flexibility.
When you're talking about the vendors that we're essentially using as partners, is it difficult to find vendors that will do what we want them to do and to ensure that they're doing it in a quality fashion?
So historically, I mean, this is kind of an interesting part about government that I didn't understand. But historically, you have a 5 to 10 to 20-year contract, and once you put it all on with this vendor, you really were stuck.
Even if it doesn't work.
Even if it didn't work, even if they didn't deliver, even if they weren't innovating, even if they weren't.
We're stuck with it.
Yeah, we just are kind of stuck with it because we paid for it, or we got it paid for one time or ongoing, whatever it looks like. When we set a different standard with vendors, it's surprising but awesome to see the vendors know that this is the right way to do it and get on board with us. Now, there's a couple that have kind of had some stretchiness in it, and that's okay because we're like, hey, if you don't want to do it, that's okay because we have other vendors we can choose from. So I think it's holding all of our vendors to a different standard, which I don't think that's how we've been able to pull those levers in the past. Right. And so I would say our vendors that we have chose to roll this first year out with are phenomenal. We are, like we said, one of the first in the country to take this approach, but it is pretty fascinating when we bring it to vendors. They're like, well, that's actually the right way to do it. And we're seeing the most innovative vendors are saying, we are glad you're doing it this way. Now, some of our older, long-standing vendors, quite honestly, it's making them get a little stretchy and say, what can you do? And if you can't do it, that's okay. But it takes those big systems out. We don't have to work with you.
Right.
Where in the past, we didn't have those options. So we had to work with some of these clunky systems or old systems or very expensive systems.
Well, that's why we had the system that existed since 1998, because doing this is so huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons. So, what's your message to staff about this? What kind of timeline are we looking at?
Well,
is there going to be training?
So I love your question, and I know, Matt, do you mind?
Go ahead.
I love your question because if I have worked at UDC for a long time, I bet there's some fear. And people are saying like, oh, great, here's another vendor or another director that thinks that they can solve this problem. I've tried to put myself in their shoes many, many, many times. I mean, I've even literally tried to put myself in their shoes by going and being and looking and listening to their jobs, going out on ride-alongs just to understand. But I guess I would say to our employees, like, we really, really care about you and the work that you do. And our goal is to make your job easier. Now, we know change is scary. So we have a really thoughtful plan moving forward. It's not like we're going to turn off this system and turn on this system. We most likely will keep both of them running at the same time, but hopefully our new one is so good that of course you wouldn't go do it this other way. This one is so much better. So we do have a process where we'll kind of decommission some things as we go, but we'll make sure we turn things on and people get to experiment with it. Training is a huge deal. I don't know about everyone, but technology training really hasn't existed. On the onboarding process or within UDC, we're getting trained about all these other things, but not necessarily technology. So we have a training we're working very close with training and technology training. We've included a lot of the leaders and a lot of the SMEs experts to come in and give us their feedback. So my message to our employees would say, like, trust the process and stay in it with us. And we believe that you will hopefully say quickly, I can't believe we didn't do it this way sooner. What would you like to?
So just to add to that, the way we're doing it and this USIMS approach is going to be very, very good for all of the staff. As we were looking at totally rewriting this monolithic system and doing it all in-house, we looked at some of the other states that have done it that way, or some of the other states that had brought on one vendor to do everything and brought in one monolith to replace an old monolith, right? And what they found is that it would take 7 to 10 years to do that whole replacement. They would shut off the old system, bring on the new system, and everyone hated it. Their jobs were harder to do. There were certain things they couldn't do anymore. And then they had to start building onto that monolith to add the things that they couldn't do now.
Sounds like a nightmare.
That's what they're finding. And so one of the reasons we're doing it this way is because it allows us the flexibility of saying, look, we're going to take this piece and this piece and this piece and replace them and give you the option, like Christy was saying, we're keeping both systems up. And hopefully you're going to find that this new way is so much better, you wouldn't want to go back to the old system. Right. And then pretty soon we start shutting off pieces of the old system that aren't being used anymore, rather than just shutting it off and forcing you over to the new one without really giving a chance to test it.
And at TNI, we've restructured a lot of our processes, and I love sharing this part because there's been major pieces that we've historically missed, even though we've only been around for 2 years. Yeah. Which is adoption and training was a big piece that I think we've really missed out at UDC. We bring on these new technologies. Maybe R&R brought in something, AP&P, everything was pretty siloed. They'd bring on these new technologies. There wasn't really good adoption, and there wasn't a lot of training historically. So we have that's been brought in as part of our process. So we'll make sure we meet those needs. Also, our QA testing before it ever even goes live. So usually it's like, you tell us what you want and we deliver it. You tell us what you want and we deliver it. Now it's, we go into discovery to learn what you want. Then we find the best solution with a good, better, best option. Then we make sure that we implement that solution. Then we test out that solution. And then it goes live, right? And then we go to adoption and training. And then we also follow up with feedback. And we have only just done the one-to-one. Now we have 5 different parts of our process to ensure things go well. And then we hear the voices from the people that are using these systems to make sure that we really did fill that need.
How important, Matt, is it for you to have staff partnering with vendors, with people that everyone is on the same page, that you're getting along with, that you're able to work with and deal with, as opposed to a lot of times in these kinds of tasks, you've got differences of opinion and people people disagree and don't want to do things. I mean, are you finding that is an obstacle still, or do you feel like you've got everybody kind of going in the same direction?
Well, I might have a little bit different view than you'd expect. I honestly feel like the arguments, the complaints, the pushing back against the direction actually helps us refine the direction. So we want people to talk up or to speak up. We want people to tell us what the problems might be. So the people we've chosen as experts are not the people that are quiet and willing to go along. They're the people that speak out. They're the people that have seen the problems and are willing to tell us what they are. And what we're finding is that the vendor we're using mostly right now also values that. They want to understand what's going on, what's working, what's not working, and what has been there and what hasn't been there. They don't just want the people to follow along blindly. They want everyone to bring up the issues before they become issues.
And I would like to say, so we're in our own leadership team. There's about 5 of us. One of the biggest approaches before we ever try to take bites of this well right, is we did some internal cleanup. And I think that was huge for our team. This sounds kind of, maybe people understand why we would do this or not understand why we would do this, but my goal was to have a very emotionally intelligent team. And the reason I say that, you wouldn't expect that in tech, right? But the reason that we went straight to emotional intelligence and really exercised those muscles is so we could create safe places for us to listen and to learn and create an environment where maybe we put our egos aside and really try to understand the needs of our employees and understand those jobs and not get in conflict, but actually try to resolve conflict in a really healthy way. So we spent 6 months focusing on our strengths, which was Strength Finder, redoing our process that could support this shift, and then practicing every single day our emotional intelligence skills as a team. So then hopefully we can lead that out with all of UDC as we go through this change.
We're talking about our the redo of our offender management system, dubbed USIMS moving forward, currently known as OTRAC. Now it's USIMS. What does USIMS stand for?
So it's Utah Correction Information Management System. And the reason that we don't even refer to it as OTRAC is because it's so much more than even what OTRAC provided. It was funny when we started this project. It was a tech project. Yeah. We were looking and saying, well, we probably shouldn't build this. So what is the best solution? And we were all sitting around saying we can't call it an OTRAC replacement. So we came up with this name that we liked that was called Project Hawkeye. And a hawk can see the big picture, but it can also hone into the fine-tuned details. So that's why we named it that. We got away with it for about 7 months. Yeah. And then we realized it probably needed to be a little bit more adulting, or a little bit more official. But the surprise, what surprised us, is how many people jumped in and said yes to this project and knew about Project Hawkeye.
They loved the sound of it. It was fun.
Yeah.
It's
and
kind
everywhere.
of a code name. It was like it sort of had like the air of a secret, or kind of a secret mission.
Yeah, it wasn't an acronym, right? It was something like, wait, UDC has a project called Project Hawkeye?
Well, and I think it really accomplished the goal.
Yeah.
If you start talking about OTRAC replacement, people stress out. Yeah. It really creates an environment of stress. But when you say Project Hawkeye, that's fun. That's exciting. That's something cool that they can be involved in.
Yeah, that was a good idea.
And then USIMS is just very professional, and it can be long-standing, and we can talk to the governor about it without feeling weird.
Right.
It really is a lot more professional.
And you don't have to answer the question, why are you calling it Hawkeye?
We got asked that quite a bit.
Which was a fun answer to come up with.
But it stuck.
Yeah.
A lot of people recognized it.
In communications, we were even looking at Hawkeye pictures to see which one we wanted to use as a potential logo, image for it.
But USIMS really does fall in line with what we're really doing. It actually explains the size of this project and actually it's really recreating a completely different platform for
It's a more lasting name, I think. So let's talk about a little bit about how AI will play into this, and maybe a little bit how AI can play into other things that corrections does. One of the things that kind of occurs to me is one of the dangers of updating a technology is that as soon as you update it, parts of it become obsolete right away, potentially. Is there a possibility that AI can help us overcome, that obstacle at least, or at least can we partner with AI, if you will, to make USIMS work even better and more lastingly?
I probably answer this in two different ways. Number one, what we like about the USIMS approach is that we can use very innovative vendors, people that are also innovating and using AI. If we have vendors, and which we do, old historic vendors that aren't moving at the speed of technology, we can hold them accountable. And so instead of trying to go change a whole monolithic system to use AI, each one of these vendors kind of acts like a speedboat, right, on a big ship, where we can say, hey, let's bring in some innovation, let's use AI in this way, and we have vendors saying yes to that. So also we are going to be using an AI system that sits on top of all of our vendors. So as confusing as it might feel to an employee, because right now every employee has to go to like 13 different vendors to do their job, and that's probably very overwhelming. And then to hear this model come out, they're like, probably it seems even more overwhelming. But what we're going to build is an AI intelligence layer that can just help you do your job quickly and efficiently with a single sign-on, so you're only signing on once. And then with our AI intelligence layer, you'll be able to do your job very efficient and effectively, even way better than you can today.
It'll make it so that you don't have to remember which vendor provides this service to do this function. You can just ask the AI, hey, I need to do this function. I need to do incidents, or I need to do an agreement. And it'll take you to the system that does that for you.
Or I need to do an intake, and it will take you to our intake system. So it takes us out of this very siloed approach to technology and puts it more systemic approach to UDC as a whole.
So is that kind of technology available now, or are we building it so that we can enable it in the future when it's ready for that?
I'm going to say both. Okay. So a lot of our vendors are using AI to make decision making within their platforms, which is awesome. Yeah. In fact, I would say 3 of our top vendors are very AI driven. But the AI layer that we're building, we still need to build that. And we'll do it. Our goal is to do that internally, so we can always be stewardships of that command center. Okay,
so the AI component is extremely important.
Yes.
Moving forward, you think? For a lot of people who aren't familiar with AI is just, can I get a table for 2 tonight at my favorite restaurant? Enter, and then you get yes or no, or writing a piece to post online. Those kinds of things. Should we be afraid of this technology in any way? I've run into people that have said also, and I think this kind of goes along with concern or fear. If something's written, they'll say, "Well, I can tell that was done with AI," and it's almost like it's kind of a point of maybe
right now, like an unsurety.
Yeah.
Should
we? So we're embracing AI. So are you saying that that's okay?
Well, I think there's always a little bit of concern with new technologies in general. Like when we went from horse and buggy to cars, like big concerns. Where are people going to drive? How fast can they drive? Where can they not drive? What if they can't get there? And now we have to build streets, right? There's a whole new world that evolved for motor vehicles. And then you go into telephone and information systems, a whole new world, and a lot of fear around so if I'm standing in a grocery store, someone can get a hold of me. I remember seeing a meme about it. Well, that sounded ridiculous and crazy, right? And, so you're saying you can talk instantly to anyone in the world. Well, what if I want my privacy? Right. There was a lot of concern with the information system. And then you get into the internet. And as we all know, there's really amazing life that came and forward-thinking things that happened to all of society once we brought on the internet. Now, there's still the dark web. It doesn't mean that there's not bad things that are happening on the internet. But it literally changed our world. And I think AI is probably one of the biggest changes to humanity that trumps all of those. So is there fear? Sure. I think there's a lot of unknowns. I think there's a lot of things that we should be leery of, that we should be aware of. And it also is one of the greatest advancements in humanity, and we should ignore it. And so how we think about AI is, how can it help us make more personalized, better decisions in an instant, and how can we remove bias from decision making, especially in corrections? How can we reduce inefficiencies? How can we improve accuracy and effectiveness? That's how we're looking at AI. I don't see AI ever replacing, and I don't want to say ever, but I don't see AI replacing our jobs at corrections. But I think people that use AI could.
So, Matt, is it possible that us embracing this technology and creating the new offender tracking system could make us a leader in the state.
Oh, my
What
goodness.
about the leadership role that corrections has the potential for here?
So, what I've seen just recently is the fact that corrections is actually moving forward with utilizing AI really quickly. And the other agencies in the state and even vendors outside are seeing that and starting to kind of move toward us. They're wanting to follow. I don't think it's just that we can become a leader. I think we already are.
Yeah, and I would
People
give
want us to be.
Yeah.
I would give a lot of credit to our executive team, especially. We have had so much support to think innovatively, especially with Jared Garcia guiding all of us. Like, he's given us a lot of room to explore and imagine, and how could we change this and what could we do. And I think it takes some good, strong leaders that kind of are willing to trust the process. So our entire executive team, but especially Jared, has really been one of the more innovative thinkers that I've seen in government in general, but especially with corrections. So kind of to Matt's point, even if we're not trying, even we're just being us, it's attracting a lot of people to say, well, if corrections is moving that way, we want to come with you, like he said. A lot of other agencies here in the state as well.
I want to add one more thing to this. Corrections in Utah has been a leader in the past, in fact. We mentioned that OTRAC was created back in the 1990s. Even early 80s is when the concept started. And this was a time when not everybody had computers in their house. Not every business had computers. It was still a leading edge that we were jumping into to create OTRAC. And we partnered with other agencies in other states to build this out to be what it was at that time and what it is today. And we were using the leading edge technologies then. Well, 30 years in the future, now it's not such leading technology, but it's time for us to lead out again. And we're doing that. We're taking this leap forward to do something that hasn't been done before, in a way that it hasn't been done before. And I think it's going to give us huge returns.
We could use technology. We're using technology to increase safety as well.
Yes.
100%.
Yeah.
In fact, we're seeing other agencies, because corrections taking such a bold move and being a stewardship and governance of our data. And really that's where we're all headed. Data is the key to success, right? So the way that we're handling our data is really inspiring other agencies, police departments, to jump on board, to follow our lead, and give a lot of confidence in this direction because we're willing to do it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much for both of you for joining me today in Conversations with Corrections. This is really good to get an update on our technology, and I'm sure I'm only going to have to wait for a couple of weeks before we need to do it again because things are going to change so fast.
You're not wrong.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, too. And in this way, technology is helping us with our dedication to service, to working together, transforming lives, and protecting communities. Talk to you next time.
This has been Conversations with Corrections from the Utah Department of Corrections. These podcasts are on our website at corrections.utah.gov or on the UDC YouTube page. Suggestions for a future topic can be sent to corrections@utah.gov. Thank you for joining us.